Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com. Here with some post-fight thoughts on James DeGale's win over Christian Sanavia. But before I continue, just remember the opinion you should follow should be your own, even for post-fight videos. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Let's go off-road for a couple of minutes here. Life truly is unfair. We all pick up things and interpret things at different rates, right? We understand things literally in different realms. And I believe that boxing is like a language. Some fighters simply have bigger vocabularies than others, right? Some fighters, in fact, speak more than one language. They could fight different styles. And some fighters need their trainers to tell them what to do in a fight, whereas other fighters are accustomed to just learning on the fly. They can just go visit the country and pick up the language, if you know what I'm saying. They're in the middle of the ring, and as the fight is going forward, they're figuring out what to do, right? They actually understand what's happening enough to make the adjustments in real time. Let's call the fighters who need instructions from their trainers, let's call them soldiers, right? They're soldiers. The trainer says, work the body. You see this all the time in fights. Work the body or throw the left hand. And the fighter goes out there and works the body and throws the left hand, right? You see that all the time. Some of the best fighters in the world right now are what I would call soldiers, right? These are guys who don't make adjustments mid-fight on their own. They have to hear it from the trainer. And because you're in the heat of combat and you're getting hit upside the head and you might not be fully conscious, these are fighters who tend to rely on their bread and butter, right? Oscar De La Hoya, in my opinion, during his career, was a soldier. I believe Vladimir Klitschko, I know he's riding high right now, but he's different than his brother. If you recall Vladimir Klitschko earlier in his career, it was noteworthy how little he made adjustments in the ring. He makes no adjustments in the Corey Sanders fight, right? His blueprint was off, couldn't handle the fact that Sanders was a southpaw, made no adjustments in that fight, right? I believe Vladimir Klitschko is a soldier. Now, don't get me wrong. Soldiers can be highly skilled, especially when you have people like Emmanuel Stewart in your corner. But make no mistake, whereas I believe Vitaly Klitschko learned the sport by actually observing what was happening in the ring and coming up with a response to it. So, of course, Vitaly Klitschko has an unconventional defense where he's catching shots on his forearms, right? He doesn't follow standard boxing protocol. He leans his head back. You rarely see Vitaly Klitschko with rabbit ears for defense, right? His defense consists of rolling with punches and leaning his head back. You can tell he picked up the sport firsthand, learning the game. I believe his brother Vladimir, on the other hand, needed an instruction manual, right? I believe what Vladimir Klitschko does, quite frankly, is he follows the instructions of the guys in his corner. And those guys, of course, have given him a great instruction manual, so to speak, so he's able to go out there and connect the dots, right? Manny Pacquiao. I would argue that Manny Pacquiao is a guy who, quite frankly, has a great corner, has Freddie Roach in his corner, and listens to Freddie religiously. You'll notice in Manny's last fight against Juan Manuel Marquez, Manny never made the adjustment during the fight, right? Manny never takes a step back and says to Marquez, why am I coming forward all the time? Why don't you come forward? Manny never changes the script. Why don't you take the lead? I'll counter you. Nothing like that, right? Well, against that backdrop, you have guys who are their own army, right? The Vitaly Klitschko's of the world, the Juan Manuel Marquez's of the world. Marquez has a great cornerman, Nacho Beristain, but you'll notice in fights that there's always that moment where Marquez cracks the code of someone like Juan Diaz and figures out that he can land uppercuts with regularity. Then he starts throwing uppercuts with both hands from different angles, right? There's the moment in a Michael Caceres fight where Marquez realizes that Caceres can't handle his volume. And so Marquez actually steps on the volume gas. And keep in mind, Marquez is not that high volume a fighter, right? Floyd Mayweather, obviously. He's a guy who literally, loses the first few rounds against Zab Judah, makes adjustments. If you track Mayweather's fights, whether it's Zab Judah, whether it's Ricky Hatton, he seems to do better as the fight goes along, right? And it's not Roger Mayweather in the corner telling him exactly what to do. No, this is Floyd in the ring figuring it out at 100 miles an hour, right? Now let's talk about the Amir Khan Lamont Peterson fight for a second. I view Khan as a soldier, right? When you watch Khan fights, he fights a certain way. I believe he's a guy who needs instructions from the corner, right? Now, the way I saw that Khan-Peterson fight was early in that fight, Khan, the better athlete, with the better power, with the better hand speed, with the better length, meets Peterson in the middle of the ring, dominates him, right? Then I thought that Peterson realized he couldn't compete with Amir Khan in the middle of the ring. He was able to muscle Khan over to the side of the ring, right? Peterson stops throwing jabs. He starts to just muscle Khan. He starts to go to Khan's body. They get over to the side of the ring where Khan has given up his foot speed advantage, his length, right? Khan throws fast punches in bunches in the middle of the ring, can't really get them off on the side of the ring, gets muscled. Even though I thought Khan won the fight, the judges did not. Khan loses his title, getting hit in the body on the side of the ring, up against the ropes, right? Khan is better as a hunter rather than as the hunted. Right? Now, just imagine. That's how I saw that fight. Just imagine if it's different. If Khan, the hunter, actually was comfortable being the hunted. Let's say he speaks multiple languages. In other words, he's fluent in English, but you know what? If the other guy is going to come in, then Khan can speak French. Right? Just imagine if Khan could fight on his back foot. Not ambush style, but literally could fight on his back foot. And just imagine if he comes in the ring, he sees the guy is hunting him, even though he's a hunter, right? He gets on his back foot. He sees the guy he's fighting, wants to get him over to the ropes. Now, what if Khan, who's devastating in the middle of the ring, says, okay, he wants to go over to the ropes. That's fine, because I'm also devastating up against the ropes. Now, just imagine if, and it's a different talent level, it's a different approach, right? I'm just mentioning the skills. Just imagine if Khan's able to fight on his back foot. He goes over to the ropes, and even though the guy has him pinned against the ropes, it's actually Khan who has the advantage. Because Khan has an inside game. This is all hypothetical. Khan's able to roll with the punches. He's able to block the punches. What being up on the ropes does is it gives him an opportunity to see what the other guy is doing, to have the other guy open up, and to systematically counter him. And what if Khan is the kind of guy who, even when he's up against the ropes, can counter with power shots? In other words, not jabs and, crosses, but literally with hooks up on the ropes while he's being backed up to the ropes. Now just imagine if Khan's skill level's even higher. Just imagine if Khan is ambidextrous, throws as well from his left as he does from his right. In fact, can stand in an orthodox stance and can stand in a southpaw stance. Now just imagine if Khan, when he's up on the ropes, actually decides to literally move back and forth up against the ropes, confusing his opponent, right? Not moving toward the middle of the ring, but literally staying on the ropes. And while the opponent comes forward, Khan has the foot spacing, literally knows his footwork to the point where he can throw power shots either when he's in a southpaw stance or an orthodox stance, and can do that with accuracy. Right? In my opinion, this is far beyond Khan at this point. Quite frankly, I think it's far beyond even ambidextrous guys like Andre Durrell. Right now, let's just say this too. Just imagine if Khan, who throws combinations, was able to throw combinations, this is while he's up on the ropes, and stay there. Not ambush, not throw combinations and back away. No, the talent level I'm talking about actually allows you to throw combinations and roll with punches while you're standing there. Then, of course, after your opponent realizes that you're at home up on the ropes, right? Think Ali Foreman. Think more recently Ortiz, Floyd Mayweather. Understand, as big a puncher as Ortiz is, take a look at where he headbutts Mayweather. Mayweather's in the corner, and he's comfortable in the corner, right? He's not the one getting flustered. The guy getting flustered is Victor Ortiz. Last weekend, Christian Sanavia backs up James DeGale. No doubt he thought he was cutting the ring off on James DeGale. What he found out was James DeGale was at home on the ropes. And what he found out was the guy who he thought he was hunting was actually systematically deconstructing him. Right now, Sanavia has been around a long time. What I want people to see on that film is how DeGale literally, voluntarily goes over to the ropes. He's the opposite of Amir Khan. He's a master on the ropes. DeGale could have stayed on the ropes for all 12 rounds. The problem was DeGale is such a sharpshooter. Right? DeGale is such a sharpshooter that he literally dismantles Sanavia, Then when DeGale turns the tables and gets to the middle of the ring, the fight is over. And what I want people to see when they look at the film, and it's up on YouTube, is just the fact that DeGale is throwing a variety of punches, right? He's throwing uppercuts. He figures out he can land an uppercut. He's throwing uppercuts on Sanavia. He's throwing withering body punches. And understand, Sanavia is much shorter than DeGale. So DeGale, a tall guy, he has a big height advantage in the fight, literally has to go low to hit Sanavia in the body. Then the final knockdown, and it's only a 4-round fight. Shouldn't take that long to watch. The final knockdown is off a combination that's so crisp that as I saw it in real time, I couldn't even tell if it was a body shot or a shot up top. I had to watch that a couple of times to figure out that DeGale literally, in the middle of what Adam Booth, George Groves' trainer, calls DeGale's blender, in the middle of a combination, DeGale just goes up top, hits Sanavia right on the chin. Now, Sanavia, after the fight, when you see him walk to his corner and DeGale walk over to him, it's clear that this proud fighter, who has had a lengthy career, does not want to be in the ring with James DeGale for another minute. Right? DeGale, quite frankly, is a completely different talent level. If you sit down and you think about what happened in fights like Con Peterson, Froch Ward, I believe that you can only reach one conclusion, and that is that this guy, and I know I've taken heat for placing him on the pound-for-pound list, but this guy, James DeGale, quite frankly, in my opinion, is the United Kingdom's best fighter. I would take DeGale over Froch today. I've said it before. I would take DeGale over Froch today at 168 pounds. DeGale, who I thought beat George Groves, I know it's controversial, but DeGale fought the wrong fight that fight. Adam Booth, Groves' trainer for that fight, pointed out that Groves' game plan was to have DeGale miss his first punch and then force him to reset so he couldn't do the rest of the combination. But the catch is DeGale doesn't even have to come forward. DeGale can actually fight you in reverse. And understand, he and Dmitry Pirog, in terms of being able to literally switch on the fly from being a southpaw to an orthodox fighter and back, while throwing power punches without running like Andre Durrell, and their ability to fight inside places them really among the most skilled in terms of balance, leverage, their feet in the sport. So if you want to see high-level fighting, and, DeGale does get hit a few times. He's not even as crisp as I've seen him. But if you want to see high-level fighting, if you want to see a guy with not just a big vocabulary, but a big vocabulary in several languages, a guy who literally, is in the ring, is adaptive, reactive, is figuring out things. He's not a soldier. He's not just blindly following a corner. He doesn't need an instruction manual. Like Vitaly Klitschko, this is a guy who is a natural fighter who has figured out how to make adjustments in the ring and who appears to, from day one, have figured out that he needs to fight inside, he needs to fight outside, he needs to be able to throw, punches up close, hooks, uppercuts. He needs to have balance. He needs to roll with punches. Then I encourage you to take a look at this fight, which is under the radar given all the fights that happened last weekend. I think in terms of talent and skill, it's the best performance From last weekend, it's James DeGale's 4th round KO of Christian Sanavia. Keep an eye on DeGale. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here on YouTube. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com. Thanks for watching.